I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with Gordon MacKay, who is the CTO for Digital Defense. Welcome, Gordon.
Hey, Ed. How's it going?
Nice to see you. I'm glad you came up to visit us.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, want to hear all about digital defense? I know you guys are doing some pretty interesting work in vulnerability management and so on. But first off, a lot of people know you guys as a professional service company for many years. I know you're a platform company. That's a whole transition in the last few years, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. I mean, when we started out in 1999, quite some time ago, I guess you could say we were, a professional services company. But when I joined in 2002, the goal was to make sure that we're automated.
Yeah.
And so we stood up our vulnerability management system, and that's what it is really. It's a platform. And at the time, it was what we called a web services platform. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the day, it wasn't SaaS.
Right.
And then when the buzzword SaaS came out, we were SaaS-based, and of course now it's cloud-based. So, and we moved into AWS now, so we're able to serve lots of clients locally, but also internationally as well.
Let's talk about cloud. I'm sure every one of your customers brings that up. You know, everybody moving toward this hybrid and public cloud. How do you guys deal with that? Are you sort of like cloud ready in the platform?
So, I mean, we like to say that we grew up in the cloud, right? Because we were always, like I say, SaaS-based, cloud-based. Now, most of our clients started out prem-based, right? So their traditional client networks have been always prem-based.
Doing vulnerability management.
Doing vulnerability management, absolutely. Now, they've moved, many of our clients have moved some of their devices, some of them are all in the cloud, and it was an easy transition for us. All we needed to do is, make our scanner, I guess, because we do external as well as internal vulnerability assessments.
Yeah.
For external, we don't have to send any hardware at all to the client site, but for internal vulnerability assessments to scan their internal networks, of course we do.
Yeah.
And so if they're in the cloud, now first of all, our platform's in the cloud itself, but secondly, to scan their devices in the cloud, we just need a scanner that's in the cloud, and that was really easy for us to do. Yeah.
Good. So I have to ask a dumb question. So a lot of people think of vulnerability management as counting patches and looking for, some sort of mundane, lists of things. Take me through kind of what modern vulnerability management is about. It's more than just determining what needs to be patched.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. In fact, years ago, I guess maybe that's what you would think of it that way. But nowadays, it's more, as attackers became smarter and smarter, organizations started learning, I really have to understand my vulnerabilities at a more frequent rate, right? So I have to remediate my vulnerabilities, patch my patches. But it's not just patching, it's also configurations, right? So easily guessable passwords and those types of things, right? And so nowadays, organizations are scanning, weekly, daily, even sometimes continuously, trying to understand where their weaknesses are. And not just that, integrating with other technologies to understand, well, where are their threats, right? Because you could be vulnerable, but if you don't have any data and you're not under attack, then you're probably not going to get compromised. And if you are compromised, if you don't have data, you really don't care unless you have a server for availability, if that makes sense.
Do you guys tend to work with bigger companies, medium, small, maybe all of the above? Where's kind of the sweet spot for this kind of?
Yeah.
I would imagine micro businesses still behind maybe not doing a lot of scanning on a little tiny company.
Well, that's interesting.
Or maybe they do.
We started out, I would say, sort of small to mid-size. We started out in credit unions, but our platform has always been able to handle large, because it's SaaS-based, large enterprises, and especially now that we're in AWS, I mean, we can handle. It's my understanding, some of our technology folks say that we could scan every endpoint on the planet. So quite interesting.
That's a lot of endpoints.
But our sweet spot, I guess you could say, is mid-market. We do offer a managed service as well, and a lot of organizations experience technical turnover, and they're not experts in vulnerability management. We are. And so often what they'll do is they'll contract out to us, and maybe that's one of the reasons that we're viewed also as a sort of a professional services company. Is yes, we do have a platform, but we also offer a managed service.
The managed service, you guys just take care of everything, soup to nuts, make sure the vulnerability management is done, provide. Is that what you do?
Yes. Now, just to be clear, it's not a managed service that performs SIM technology and all that integration and stuff. It's a vulnerability management and vulnerability intelligence managed services, if that makes sense, right? So we have a personal security analyst that is dedicated to the account, that helps the organization understand how do they set their scans up, and even gives them recommendations in terms of how do you go about What's the strategy? What's the best plan to reduce the risk as fast as possible?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, you were telling me about this concept of as a configuration shifts in time, doing vulnerability management, like this point in time concept where I do VM,
Yeah.
configuration shifts, and then it's not really reflective. Am I saying that right? Tell us how your platform did.
Right.
You guys have a unique way of dealing with that.
We do, absolutely right. So there are different types of technologies for scanning, but by and large, the one that all of us vendors use most frequently, or that the clients use, that we all offer, is network-based scanning. Yes, we do authenticated-based scanning. Yes, there's also agent-based scanning, but by and large, clients are going to use network-based scanning. But that comes with a challenge, and the challenge is as follows, right? So vulnerability management is not just scanning at one point in time. That's scanning, and that's important, and it's important for that to be accurate as well. But nowadays, organizations, the vendors have been doing this so long that a one point in time scan, if you compare it versus other vendors, it's very comparable. Yeah, we'll miss some things, but others, we'll miss some things, we'll get some things that other people don't get. By and large, we'll catch everything that everyone else gets. But when you're looking at, as time goes on, the element of time, scanning every day, and an independent scanning every week, the challenge is, for the management system, the vulnerability management part of the intelligence, to understand the endpoints that I'm seeing at one point in time, how are they falling and how are they appearing in the next scan, right? And so many of our competitors out there use very simplistic algorithms to match the endpoint at one point in time to its counterpart at another point in time. And the challenge is because all of the characteristics that are perceived by a scanner, there's not a given characteristic that's possibly never changing. There are characteristics that don't change within the endpoint itself, but you can't detect that remotely. You can detect things like IP address, different types of host name, NetBIOS host name, DNS host name, operating system, that kind of thing. But all of those elements possibly do change. And we've actually did a study. Because we're cloud-based, we're able to do this. So even though our data is anonymized, we're able to actually perform analytics, if you will, and studies on the data. And we found that these characteristics change at alarming rates. And so what we do is we'll use everything we can see. We have a patented algorithm, and it uses everything we can see, from IP address, host names, open ports, all the way even to the vulnerabilities themselves. So we're seeing all these characteristics across time, and it's sort of like analogous to a fingerprint when you look at your fingerprint, right? And you see all the different ridges and the edges, and if you depress it on a fingerprint reader, one day and then the next day you tilt it a little bit, you want the fingerprint reader to say, yeah, it's Gordon, right? And so that's sort of similar to what we do with our patented algorithm. Whereas the competitors use one or two simultaneous characteristics only, if that makes sense.
It gets you more toward a continuous vulnerability management.
It does.
Instead of point
absolutely,
time.
And if you don't get it right, if the technology doesn't get it right, what happens is, you can imagine if, like for example, an endpoint has a certain set of vulnerabilities. If you mismatch it, if the technology mismatches it to a different host, and now assuming that those vulnerabilities are completely orthogonal, just for the sake of argument, the vulnerability management system will declare all of the vulnerabilities that it saw on the last scan are completely fixed for that endpoint. Yeah, you have new ones, but you're doing a good job because you've solved the old ones, right? And in fact, that's not what's happening. It's just because of a mismatch, if that makes sense.
I bet auditors like this thing, right? I would imagine they would.
They do. And that's one of the things that we promote as a differentiator in our technology. And in fact, there are quite a few companies, and we sell to all kinds of different markets and all kinds of different use cases, one of which is for auditors.
Yeah,
so,
it seemed like that would make sense. Now, help me understand how you deploy the technology? How do you integrate with any kind of vendors in terms of just sort of the practical question of how you push endpoints and so on? How do you do that?
Deploying it has always been very easy because we're cloud-based. If you don't want internal vulnerability assessments, and of course we would recommend that everyone needs them, but for external vulnerability assessments, we perform the assessment. The scanning engine itself is not on-prem. It just sends messages out and receives data back, etc. For internal vulnerability assessments, we'll send the client one or more scanners, which they would place strategically in their networks. They can download these scanners as well. In fact, nowadays they can log into the portal. They don't even have to contact us. They can log into the portal, press a couple buttons, and download a virtual image and place it into their, so it's quite hands-off.
Yeah.
Now in terms of integrations, you mentioned integrations, right? So we have, in the last, I guess, 2 years, we've always done integrations, but in the last 2 years, we've really taken that to heart, and we've created a new team. Actually, this new team reports directly under me. It's our integrations team, and you know, what we want to do with this, our philosophy isn't just to check boxes. Yes, I'm integrated with such and such SIM or such and such orchestration technology, but what we really want to do is ensure that we're solving strategic use cases for our clients, because that makes sense and it's easier to sell as well, right?
Yeah.
Plus it brings value. So some of the key integrations we have a really cool one with Forescout Technologies and Network Access Control. So for example, one of the use cases is where a new device comes on the network and Forescout detects it.
The NAC picks it up.
The NAC picks it up. It will look to see, do I already have data from Digital Defense's frontline system that helps me understand where whether or not this thing is vulnerable. If it doesn't have data, in other words, it's a device that Frontline has never seen before, Forescout will kick off a message out to Frontline and say, scan this device now, because I'm not going to give it full network access until I know more about it.
Can you do that quickly?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is all automated, right?
That's
so once
good.
it's all set up, it's all automated and happens within seconds. So that's Forescout. One of the other cool integrations we have is with McAfee EPO, e-policy orchestrator.
Very popular tool.
Yes. And so, so basically, what we're able to do is we're with this integration, we're pulling in all of the endpoints that we're scanning, vulnerabilities, devices, et cetera, are being pulled into EPO. So we have all that information in EPO, and that information can be used within EPO to sort of correlate the vulnerabilities and other information that EPO gathers from its other services, because it also has different applications that it manages, such as endpoint detection and response, EPP, DLP, lots of different cool use cases that are not yet there, but one could easily push the buttons and bring them in place. Now, one of the cool advantages right now that's available is where McAfee EPO itself manages, through its McAfee agents, different endpoints for the client. But there's always a blind spot, right? It doesn't even know what it doesn't know. It doesn't know that there are some, it knows, of course we know as the architects that there are some endpoints out there that are not under the purview of EPO, if that makes sense. But EPO itself doesn't know. So this integration with Frontline, because we're seeing all of the devices out there that we're scanning, and we're bringing that into EPO, we correlate that with what EPO knows about, and within EPO's rogue system detection, I guess, technology or offering, you basically just have to download this thing in EPO. You're able to get a sense of what are all the different endpoints out there that EPO has no knowledge about. And right from that screen, you could actually deploy agents to those devices.
That is a big deal.
Cool.
I mean, the idea of handling unknown, I'm sure there's a lot of CISOs watching us speak right now. Every one of them knows that known versus unknown is, there's a gulf the size of our galaxy, right? Because when the things you manage with EPO, you have control of the other stuff. So you're saying you can help solve that problem.
Absolutely.
That's really, really powerful.
And in fact, now we have other use cases with it, but we just come out with this. It's just been released, and already many of our clients are asking for this specifically for that use case.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And even with the NAC, I can see, where you guys help on the known versus unknown in endpoint management. With NAC, the problem has always been this issue of what to do when a device shows up and you're not sure what to do with it.
Right.
The 802.1x always had all this sort of nebulous guidance on what to do. It sounds like you guys are addressing that problem as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, vulnerability management is general enough that it kind of plugs into a lot of places. I would think you're probably doing some more integrations in the next year or two.
We are, absolutely.
It makes sense,
absolutely.
right?
We have quite a bit of, one of the cool things.
Your team is watching now going, oh man, we're busy enough now.
Absolutely, no.
Keep them working, right?
Keep them working, absolutely.
Keep working.
Yeah.
Speaking of keeping working, what are you guys looking at in the future? You must be thinking about some new stuff.
So that segues really nicely into, not that this was prepared, of course, but it's integration. So we're looking at, in integration land, what we're looking at, because we believe that the intelligence that we gather from the vulnerability management platform and combined with the endpoint information, meshing that together, there's a lot of really cool use cases that are out there. I wonder if I should share one.
Well, I mean, what you're describing makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, taking the, I guess, EDR and vulnerability.
EDR, vulnerability, DLP.
They go together nicely.
Even DLP and vulnerabilities.
They do go together very well.
Yeah, a lot of people would think, what would DLP have to do with it? But that's something that we've actually worked on as well.
It's kind of the strength of, the vulnerability management has always struck me as a pretty foundational component in a security program. So I hope anybody's watching, anybody watching doesn't have a VM program, they better get moving. and I think you would agree, even mid to lower market, where years ago, if you're in a small company, you went, well, I don't do security, we're a small company. That's not such a great decision anymore, right?
And we scale down to one endpoint. If you only have one endpoint and you need service, we can do it. We're the best priced in the market.
You can take care of me with my backpack and PC?
Absolutely.
All right. That sounds good. Hey, you enjoying being CTO for a cool tech company?
I love it. It's very fast paced. It's the days are packed every single day.
It is just a delight to speak with you. Thanks for stopping by our studio.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Hey, next time you're in town, come back, give us an update.
Absolutely, we'll do.
It's so nice to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you next time.